Welcome to Connecticut Newsmakers with Tom Monahan, your weekly look at the people, issues, and events shaping our state. Connecticut Newsmakers starts now on NBC Connecticut HD, Connecticut's news leader.
Welcome back, everybody, to part two of Connecticut Newsmakers. Our guest in this segment of the program is Patrick Scully. He heads up Scully Communications and more specifically the Hanging Shad that you will see on the internet. Patrick, thanks for coming in and being with us on
Tom, it's great to be here this morning. Thanks for having me.
You have also been around, Connecticut politics for a while. You worked for the Senate Democrats in the communications area. Spent a lot of time there. Did a little bit of work with Jim Amon as he was for a short time running for governor. So you know your way around Connecticut politics. What do you make of this political year 2010?
Boy, there's no shortage of drama, is there? This has been the wackiest, on its head political cycle that I've seen in some time. The U.S. Senate race, the race for governor, various House and Senate race locally as well. So as a political consultant now, a communications consultant, it's the busy season for me. And sometimes, as we were talking before, even people that have been around for quite some time are kind of shaking their head thinking, what's going on here? But for people that are doing this for a living and enjoy watching it, it's fascinating, nothing short.
Every day you probably get out of the political world one or two lead stories because of the nature of where we are right now as compared with in a regular kind of season. You probably wouldn't maybe get one pretty good story a month. I mean, you talk about the Bysowitz situation that happened. Now you got these attacks coming out on Blumenthal, whether or not he said he served in Vietnam when he didn't, so forth. So these are kind of sidebars, but along with those things and just the number of candidates, it's hard to cover, as you can imagine.
It really is. The log jams that have been the statewide offices in Connecticut have really opened up. And in 2006, I think the air got sucked out of the room as far as the governor's race was concerned because of Lieberman, Lamont, in the U.S. Senate race. Right. But this year they all seem to be getting the attention that I think, frankly, they deserve. The Blumenthal thing, according to the Quinnipiac poll that came out this week, seems to have weathered that storm. And it all depends on how you read the stories. Some headlines were Blumenthal up by 20 points. Others said Linda McMahon, the Republican, is gaining 5 points. But in my mind, it's kind of like a baseball team that's up by 20 runs. If the other team scores 4 or 5 runs, you're not really worried about it. So, And the governor's race is what I'm really fascinated with. The Democratic primary between Ned Lamont and Dan Malloy is fascinating because Lamont has all the money that he can put in and ran statewide against Lieberman. But Malloy was the first person to qualify for public financing. So now every time Lamont spends more money till it's capped, then Malloy gets more funding. Now Malloy hasn't spent a dime on TV ads, and Lamont is just throwing the money at it. So it'll be interesting to see from now to August. In my mind, Malloy might be behind in the polls, but could have a little advantage as we head for the home stretch.
Well, you mentioned that, and you wonder if, of course, Lieberman, as you pointed out, or Lamont took on Lieberman statewide in the primary, won the primary. Those people who vote on primary days, you wonder how many are going to come out. Who are they? Would you say, with that in mind, that Lamont has a leg up, that it's going to be pretty hard for Malloy to overcome that?
That is an advantage for him. Again, the primary is August 10th. Most people are thinking about what beach they're going to get to or how to pick up their kids that day from summer camp. So it will be a question of who gets out the vote. There is a lot of money involved in all of these races. Lamont, as you said, has run statewide before beating Lieberman in the primary. But Malloy, he's got an appeal. He's got Nancy Wyman with him, who's incredibly popular, and he's getting that public financing that he's been keeping in reserve, sort of holding his fire. So that's the one I think is going to come right down to it. On the Republican side, Tom Foley leads. And I wrote on my website this week that being the outsider seems to be the in. Having no experience is somehow a qualification now.
Right, yeah.
And I think we're going to continue to see that. Even people who have been in the political business for 10, 12, 15 years are claiming I'm the outsider. So I don't know what's going to hold up, but in the Quinnipiac poll, one thing I found extremely interesting was buried in all the numbers, they asked voters, would you prefer a candidate with experience or an outsider? And at least here in Connecticut, maybe not nationwide, the person with the experience got 51%.
Really? That is interesting. That was an interesting part of the poll. Let's get back to the Blumenthal thing for a second, Patrick. That which came out, and who knows how it came out. I mean, for a while, McMahon's camp reportedly was taking credit for that. Right. Then they backed off, if in fact they had anything to back off from. But it came out, and if it was a political kind of a plant, this Vietnam War record of Blumenthal, why would it have come out at that particular time? Some think that, you know, why not use it a couple of weeks before the election, unless there's a lot more fodder for people to throw out there.
That's the way Blumenthal could come down. If it's death by 1,000 cuts, and there's more and more and more, and let's face it, Linda McMahon can afford the best opposition research that money can buy. So maybe they felt that they do have some sort of arsenal of this coming out bit by bit. But I was joking with a friend the other day that, I mean, Linda McMahon talking about the military, the closest she's come is Sergeant Slaughter. So I'm not so sure she's got a ton of credibility on that issue either. Right. But Blumenthal is working hard, and so far he's overcome it. But you're right, why use it now unless there's more to come? We'll see.
Can whoever wins the Republican nomination for governor defeat the Democratic nominee this go-around? 1986, we're going 24 years ago, is the last time this state elected a Democratic governor. I mean, Foley's numbers are, you know, he's got a big lead within Republican circles. I'm not sure how he would stack up against a Malloy or a Lamont.
That's a very good point, and I have a theory on that, and that is there are a lot of voters in any state that don't want to turn the whole store over to one party. We have vast majorities of Democrats in both the House and the Senate on the state level. So some people may be hesitant to put a Democrat as governor as well. I think that Democrats, in a way, one way Lamont may be leading, one reason may be because he has electability, which translates into he's got a ton of money to fight Tom Foley with, who also has a ton of money. Right. So it's going to be very interesting whether that holds. The same thing happened in Massachusetts until Deval Patrick got in as a Democrat. They had a whole string of Republicans with an incredible amount, even more than Connecticut, of Democrats in the House and Senate. So we'll see whether that holds or whether people are going to go with a proven leader like Malloy or somebody with a lot of money in his run statewide like Lamont.
Final point, Patrick, when you talk about the state legislature, do you see Republican gains in the House and Senate?
It's quite possible. There are some very interesting races out there, and one that I was looking at the other day has Karen Jarmock, who's a state representative from Enfield, taking on longtime veteran Republican John Kissel. Both are very popular. So this is a year where you're going to see a lot of close races. There could very well be Republican gains, but I wouldn't put too much stock in Connecticut going the way the rest of the nation is, with this anti-incumbency fervor that is just tossing people out just because they're there. One of the previous guests you had, Senator Fonfara, who I worked with for years, is just one of the hardest working guys in the Senate, and I don't think he'll have any problems. So we'll see. It's going to be fun.
Patrick, thanks, and a good conversation we had. It stopped my head from spinning for a few minutes because it'll go back after the show and start spinning again with who's in, who's out, and so forth. Thanks again, Patrick.
Thanks,
all the best
Tom.
to you.
Thanks for having me.
Scully Communications Head, Patrick Scully, and we'll be back with part 3 in a moment.